day, good day, good day, good day, everybody. Yes, it's Startup and Innovators on the Atlanta Discuss channel. Yes, we have another. He's not a startup, he's more of an innovator this time around. Well, he could have been called a startup some years back, but right now he is an innovator. And he's slays stereotype, break barriers, does extraordinary things, carves his niche, in very unusual terrain. And then anytime he goes there, he attracts people there and possibly move to another venture. Highly creative. Yeah, that's why today we have a guest, and his name is Tony Onwuchekwa, aka Tony Doe. So for most of the time, I'll be calling him Tony Doe. Tony Doe, welcome to Startup and Innovators.
Hello, Adi. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know you can't see him, but then you can hear his voice, that's his picture. So I'm sure it's because of some network issue, but we're good with it. And Tony is a Nigerian podcaster. I'm sure a lot of you will have heard about him. Media consultant, audio strategist, helping creators brand and organization navigate evolving digital media landscape. He's just a specialist in that area. If your company is, even if you're doing well and you're known, no matter what you're doing, you go to Tony, you always do something different for you. So through podcasting, content strategy, audience development, it works to bridge the gap between the great ideas and the people they are meant to reach. So I'll leave it at that for now because it's always good to allow, the man tell his story himself. So Tony, tell us, how did you get here? Where you coming from? Where did you start? Was this what you've always wanted to do? How did you land where you are right now? Over to you, Tony.
Well, thank you, Adi. To be honest, it wasn't a planned trip. I believe for many of us, especially those of us who grew up in the 80s, we had fixations on the area of professions our parents expected us to follow. You're either going to become a doctor, a lawyer, maybe an accountant. I think I even had dreams of being a pilot at one time, and then with numerous air crashes, I decided against it. And besides, I can't say my maths was helping in that aspect as well. My journey into media actually began intentionally in 2001. I was an undergraduate in university at the time, and we had this thing, you get to your third year and then you're expected to do some sort of internship. Although I think the appropriate word would be volunteering because some of us were not being paid for that. So it started with Lagos State Television. It was unexpected. I really didn't know what to expect at the grounds, and this was during the time of Jimmy Odumosu's presence as a permanent secretary. Turns out that my mom had a short radio drama stint back in the day, and she kind of knew him and just mentioned to him that I was studying media, and maybe there was space for me to develop practical skills. And so I went there, and I got involved in programs. I found myself being fascinated by what happened behind the scenes more than what happened in front of the cameras. So I was very busy running up and down with producers, editors, cameramen, trying to capture events behind the scenes. And I think one of the projects I worked on at the time was the International Women's Day for that year in 2001. If they still have the tapes, you'll find my name at the end credits. So with that bit of exposure, I saw things happening behind the scenes that I thought I could always become a part of if I had the opportunity again. That opportunity would come 3 years later, and it was the radio arm of the station. The circumstances getting into that work was a bit different. I had started taking a journalism course in the Ogba area, and one of our lecturers worked in the marketing department at the radio station. So when we were expected to volunteer, I asked if it was possible for me to work on radio, and he said yes, that could happen. And I think I had a few friends at the time because I was also dabbling into music too. So I knew a few people I used to have conversations with, DJs, presenters, pass my music over to them, and some of them worked at the station as well, so it was kind of easy. I was among friends. Again, I wasn't interested per se in what was happening in front of the microphone. I was interested in what was happening behind it, and so I found myself co-producing bits for some of the programs, and somehow my voice became interesting to some of my orgas at the time. So I did some voiceover work, which more or less pulled me into more microphone activities. And so I started presenting as well. And a few years later, there was a new station popping up in Lagos, and I was one of those who was recommended. And that was currently they're known as Max FM, but at the time, it was way before they became Radio Continental. But Radio Continental from say 2008 was where I really began to do my thing on radio. So radio production, radio programming, radio presentation was something I became really fascinated about. And I think I would say I was pretty fortunate to have worked with people who were welcoming in this space and who were willing to share their values, their experiences without condescension, because some of the things I was able to do or learn how to do had nothing to do with what was being taught in classes. It was based on the kind of conversations I was having with more experienced gentlemen and women as well. So, so creating content basically for audio or in audio formats with the intention of telling powerful stories and connecting with people on a deeper emotional level was basically what excited me about doing radio work. I always liked the mystery of being invincible, but being felt omnipresent more or less. But even if people couldn't feel you, they could always hear you. They could always, if people couldn't see you, rather, they could always hear you. They could always feel you. And the
Like
power
we're
of
doing
radio
right
was
now, right?
able to do that for me. Yes, something like this. Even though this is more of internet and it's
Yes,
raining here,
I
so
like
I
it.
think that's also
I like it.
affecting the quality.
Yeah, I like it. And your voice is speaking to me. Yeah.
So, all right, awesome. So, radio then became my heart and soul. It became everything I thought I always wanted to do until I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. But I still wanted to tell stories. I still wanted to be involved in how audio was used, to good effect. So a lot of my skills was really based in production. I enjoy producing a lot of audio content, from documentaries to radio station imaging. And radio station imaging at the time, even till now, is not particularly something that a lot of local producers are involved in. Many radio stations usually outsource this skill to companies in Europe, companies in America who create packet or custom versions for them. But I got involved in it and ended up building content for radio stations locally. And while I was doing things on my own, building that aspect of my next iteration of life, which was going to be voiceover work and packaged audio content, I stumbled on podcasting. And this was around 2012, thereabouts. And I was fascinated by that world as well, because the limitations that curtailed us on radio were not existent in podcasting. We weren't limited to time slots or advertising breaks. Podcasting was as long or as short as you wanted it to be. It didn't have the full production elements of a radio show where music had to be played, where sweepers had to be involved. You just had somebody with a compelling voice, a more compelling message, time and access to the internet to reach every corner of the world if possible. And so that fascinated me as well. And then I got involved in the ecosystem, started having conversations with people who were innovating in that space. And I've been doing that till this very moment.
Wow, wow, wow. Interesting. I'm sure you do a lot of mentoring, you didn't mention anything about that. I'm sure you do a lot of mentoring. Can you tell us about what you've been doing in that area?
Um, I don't know if it's modesty or the fact that I don't keep count
Mm,
really of people I mentor, if that's the term. But I do know that I've worked with quite a number of people who've gone on to do incredible things. Some have worked in media. Some have taken those qualities into other aspects of their lives. And I think it's probably the same way I had my own experiences with my own mentors, the likes of Femi Sholu, Johnson. I think that was the kind of relationship I was able to also build with the people I worked with. So it was never really about a father figure or uncle or my way is the high, my way or the highway type of relationship. It was always cordial. It was always about rubbing shoulders. It was always about being in the same space. This is what I would do if I were in this situation. What would you do if you were in this situation? And that I think has helped. In podcasting, it's really been interesting because I found ways to actually reach people in ways that I wouldn't have been able to do physically. Um, I also operate as the operations director for a virtual platform called the Radio Masterclass. And before it became a virtual platform, we used to have live classes, and I used to take the podcast classes.
Oh, wow.
And I think with that, it was a little easier to identify those you felt would carry on whatever it was you were sharing with them.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, that wasn't possible. But through podcasting, I remember I started creating content and then finding people on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
especially on social media, who were interested in developing their skills, didn't have the outlets, didn't have the opportunity, and seemed restricted to having to audition for certain roles. And I just found that some of these people um, connected with the kind of things I was creating. And so I was like, look, I have a platform. I don't need to see you.
Mm.
But if you have a phone and you can record cleanly and quietly,
Mhm.
send me your voice, and this is what I can do with it.
Oh, wow.
There was a young lady known as she's Lady Tolu. She's actually one of the biggest podcast editors in the country, but she's pretty quiet about it now.
Mm.
And then she's doing incredible things in the digital marketing space. At the time, she was about to become a youth copper, and she had been auditioning to get into radio and TV, and opportunities weren't coming. And I struck a conversation with her, and I said, look, you're going into camp. What if you could do a diary
Mm.
of your experiences during the 3 weeks? And she was like, how would that work? I'm like, same way you write it down every night, record it into your phone. And when you think you have episodes, send them to me, and I'll do the rest. And so she started that journey into podcasting through that as well. There's a young man with Wazubia FM now, Buchi. Buchi made a prophecy that he would work at Wazubia FM. He didn't know at the time, and I found him, and we were both Arsenal. We're still both Arsenal fans. I loved his energy. I loved his position. He wasn't always right about the things he said, but he was confident enough to share and express himself the way he liked. And we started that as well. Through WhatsApp, he would send his reactions to match the results, and I would ask for 2 minutes, which would send me 10 to 12 minutes of content. And with that, we would have conversations over how I think he could have, sounded a little better, but I would still put it out the way he did. And today he's, one of the biggest voices in pigeon radio in Lagos. So yes, I've had those kind of opportunities. There might be many more. I know a few people have reached out to me and said I helped them do things that I really do not recall. But I take this. I took this from a gentleman who is now late. We didn't always get along, so it's always interesting when you can take something from somebody you don't get along with and then apply it to your life. Richmond Dyer Johnson he was radio director at the time I left Continental. And he used to say this a lot. He said, do not hold on to the knowledge you have, lest you die of knowledge constipation. And it made sense because if you hoard knowledge, you become frustrated with the knowledge you hoard. You don't make way for the new one you can acquire, and then you waste the one that you could have let go that would have been useful to somebody else. So it's always interesting to learn to pay things forward. So I think that applies to what I do as well.
Interesting, interesting. So let me ask you this. I mean, there's no doubt that, Nigeria has a lot of talent, immense talent. So as a media consultant yourself, what do you think are the missing link now? We already have musicians playing Ivy League in the world. A lot of our movies are there on Netflix and other mediums. Nigerians are taking over YouTube, and all that, but as a country, well, maybe there's still a little bit of lagging behind. What are the missing link? What are the impetus or what are the recommendations as a media consultant yourself that you think Nigeria as a country, or maybe I won't say Africa, Nigeria need to be at the forefront of everything, podcasting, media, TV, radio, because there's room for improvement. The talent that is there, but there's still a little bit of lacunas and aberration, sometimes in production, sometimes in marketing, like you do, sometimes in strategy. That's where people like you come in, quality content creation, brand management, organization, project management, and all that. So, what do you think is missing and what has to be done? Over to you, Tony.
Um, Basically, it's about systems.
Hmm.
We we we're blessed. I
Hmm.
don't even know how to put this in words. And in every aspect of my life, I've been surrounded by incredibly talented people, stunted by systems that do not help them maximize that talent. You find people who are gifted in certain fields, but because the system does not recognize that gift for what it is, they have to downplay that gift and fit in to something else that appears more sociable. And then over the years, we've rewarded mediocrity. We've downplayed excellence, and it's showing in the things we do. It's become a case of just do it like that, or this is how we've always been doing it. We seem restrictive with the ideas that we need to improve things. I remember a situation in 2019. I'd come out of hiatus to become programs manager at Wazobia FM Onitsha, and it was the most unlikely thing
Hmm.
for someone like me to agree to. And it was in a system that seemed comfortable with the way it was. Meanwhile, it was surrounded by a lot of potential, and it was because there was a system in place that didn't allow for them to evolve beyond that state. How we do things in our schools are important. When I did my internship in 2001, it would have been a difficult situation for me if I wasn't personally interested in what I thought I could gain from the experience on TV, because the impression of the operators there was that if I had the nerve to spend 3 years in university and come into a space like that, I should be coming with appropriate knowledge to know how the system works. But I made it clear to them that we weren't being taught in the system. We weren't being taught surrounded by equipment, surrounded by professional operators. We were taught in classrooms with notes and handouts. And this is the opportunity for me to actually see whether those notes and handouts correspond with what really happens in the world. So a lot of people are learning things that they cannot apply when they get into the real world. And the real world is even moving faster than how some schools are set up to prepare kids or to prepare the next generation. The only thing we really have an advantage of is there's access right now, far more access to information, to knowledge tools than ever before. But people still need to be guided. And to be guided, then the systems have to be put in place, the reward systems as well. People have to know that if they do the right thing, there's an appropriate reward for doing the right thing as well. So we have a problem with systems. We have a problem with the state of the education. What are we learning in schools? Why are we learning how we're learning in schools? What is useful in schools that could be applied in the real world?
Mhm.
If not, we'll keep on, we will keep on churning out square pegs and round holes. People who study certain things because they're expected to come into society and decide they want to do something else, and it's a learning process all over again, rather than a continuation of something that had a foundation. So we need to look at our systems. We need to look at even within the working system.
Mhm.
There are companies who do not prioritize elevating their staffers.
Oh.
If somebody has worked at a company for so long, I worry more
Mm.
for that person, because if the person is stuck in a system that is just an endless cycle of no improvement, if anything goes wrong and that person has to move to a different company,
Mhm.
then the person struggles or may never have the opportunity to work again. And I really believe that companies have to invest in the talents who work for them. If you invest in them, invest in their knowledge acquisition, invest in their evolution, I think they're more likely to stay. And even if they don't, if they go with the value that you have provided for them. And then they can also encourage other people to come into that system and get that value as well. So systems, at the end of the day, we need that. We need to improve our educational systems. We need to improve our company systems. We need to look at people as more than machines and capable of developing, their skill sets.
Interesting. Let me chip in this, right? Omalak, let me ask you this. So you're the expert. Now, do you think, I mean, those working with government, those working in private sector, doing what you do you think they are well remunerated? Because you were saying something now about, no improvement, no incentive. I know a lot of people are on their own, people like you, freelancers and all that. But those that are on a contract or permanent employment, do you think they are getting value for their skill set? That's one. Two, do you think the industry itself, talking social media, podcasting, broadcasting, and all that, do you think it should be more regulated? I know some aspects of it are regulated, but do you think it should be regulated or should still be a free-for-all kind of thing? Over to you, Tony.
Okay, the first one is about remuneration.
Yes, very
I
much.
believe in most cases, especially people in government
Mm,
operated situations, are not exactly
mm,
paid adequately.
mm,
And from the little experience I had
mhm,
during my internships, I found that many of them were very gifted
mm,
in multitasking and multi-marketing. In fact, I remember then when they were asking me if I actually wanted to um, have a proper profession in the space, and they warned me that the private sector was not guarantee.
mm,
It was not a guarantee for me that if I wanted to stay in media, I could, collect the small salary
mhm.
and then know that as a civil servant, yeah, I may be protected, but then I can do other things I want to do. But the problem with that is it encourages mediocrity over time.
Mm.
No, they are not. And that's again because we do not have systems that turn into standards. And yes, some companies have popped up and offered great remuneration in the beginning for certain talents. And then over time, they find that maybe what they were paying is a little too much compared to what they need to actually run the company itself. And then, these people leave too. So, remuneration, I wouldn't want to argue about it having to be streamlined.
Mhm.
Maybe within government circles, certain improvements can happen with decent policies that encourage people within those systems to actually give their best.
Mm.
And then, they get remunerated properly, other aspects of their lives properly covered.
Mhm.
In the private sector, I think being more competitive is what helps with how remuneration is done. If you're hired to do a certain gig and you're pretty good at it and you're paid a certain amount, you're expected to actually perform a lot better. And then it becomes competitive. If somebody else now wants your service, it's like, great football clubs in Europe, you bring good money, you buy a good player, you make sure you take care of the player well. The player earns, he knows what he's earning
Mm.
week in, week out, and it is up to him to
Mm.
perform
Mm.
at the optimum level. So if there's adequate competitiveness in the space for excellence, then we'll be able to see those results as well. The standards are there already, so it's not like we're reinventing standards. It's just that we're now recognizing those standards and applying them and rewarding according to what those standards provide for us. So, in government circles, things can get better.
Mm.
In the private sector, more competition around values, around excellence, could also be done. Then, when it comes to regulation, I have a problem with regulation, and this is my problem with regulation. Understanding what it is really, because a lot of what we've been accepting as necessary regulation really has just been handed down decrees from the military era.
Mm.
And many of those things are so draconian, they have no business with encouraging growth. So when you hear regulation, your heart skips a bit. You're like, what have I done? What do I need to do? And the regulations fall into control and manipulation rather than competitive arena where the best can actually come up and thrive. So we don't need more regulation. We just need to revise the regulation we have and apply them accordingly or adequately. That's another thing. We have a lot of these things and we don't put them to use. Regulation has existed since, we've just not been applying it and then knowing where to apply it. And this again comes down to the quality of education that even continues beyond the walls of tertiary institutions into the systems that operate themselves. So every time we have our legislators talking about things, who are those of us in the creative spaces, in those spaces as well, who can interpret these things and bring them back into the spaces we operate in? Right now, a lot of us are operating in silos. We're not even in communities, we're not in ecosystems because everybody's trying to survive rather than thrive. A lot of people in this space today are accidental creatives or creators or influencers. Nothing else was working. There's internet. Let me go and become content creator and let's see whether that will work. So if we pay attention to our education, if we pay attention to our systems, if we pay attention to maintaining standards and rewarding excellence, we would see better results in these spaces and all these things will fall into place.
Wow, interesting. So we're still talking to Tony Onwuchekwa, popularly known as Tony Doe. Great guy, as you all can see. Plenty to learn, plenty to unpack. He's the host of Info the Podfast, where he explores podcasting, media, and the future of audio. And his work extends into travel, storytelling, and communication through Global Links and Services Limited. So if you want to know about him. I'm sure if you look at the comment section, I'll leave his details there on LinkedIn and all that, social media, and in case you need his services. He's very good at what he does. It could be a multinational company or what have you. He can always help you restructure and rebrand you. I mean, so my last question for you today, Tony. What's the next big thing for you? You've been there, done that, middle age now, you're growing, you're now a veteran, whether you like it or not. I mean, so what's the next big thing? Where are you going next?
Veteran.
Yeah,
I never thought that word would
veteran is not,
would.
it's not by age, bro. It's not by age. It's not by age. I'm not a veteran.
Yeah, it's just funny because I
I'm not
know
10
I
years in
used.
the industry. You're far more than that, if not 20 more
Yes,
than
I
that.
agree.
So, you know.
I'm just
There are
reminded
people,
of
there are
times.
people that joined 5 years ago and they are sounding
They are
like
veterans already.
they are veterans already. They are behaving
Yes.
as if they fixed the work. Understand?
In fact, we used to say if you did 4 years on radio consistently,
Mm.
you'll be Baba already. So,
I'm 6 years.
um,
I'm 6 years thereabout doing this now.
see,
Even
and
though,
there's a lot of because
mm,
you're experiencing things on a day-to-day basis. So
exactly,
there's so much, yeah, there's so much you accumulate in that time that
a
some people
lot,
would never experience it in a lifetime.
a lot,
So yes,
a
I just
lot.
remember when I used to do interviews, I referred to people as veterans, and
Before 2
now I'm being
a.m.,
referred to as one.
morning, 6 a.m. in the morning. I have a guest that is in Singapore, and we just have to
Wow.
do it. I have a friend, a guest that's in Accra. He said, okay, we're going to record 10 a.m. Accra time. I'm in another part of the world. I'm 6 hours behind. I have to be available. You understand? So
Yeah, I do.
it requires commitment, not just the talent and the skill. You must be committed. And this,
Yes, you must be committed.
yeah.
You
Mhm.
must be.
What to
What
you?
would I say? The interesting thing is, I wouldn't call it pivoting per se, but I'm not even in Lagos. Maybe that's even part of why the internet connectivity
No, it
is the
doesn't
way it is. If I
matter.
was home,
It's fantastic. Mhm.
thank you. I'm actually in Warri, head office of Global Links and Services Limited
Okay.
Travel and Tours. This company is run by my sister, my older sister. We're only
Okay.
two. Among the two of us, she's. You think I'm experienced? If you hear my sister speak, you wonder, you wonder how tourism,
Mm.
hasn't been better over time. She's the most recent. She just finished her tenure as the deputy first president of the National Association of Nigerian
Mhm.
Tourists,
Mhm.
Nigerian travel agents. I beg your pardon.
Mhm.
So after I recently joined the team last year. I've been avoiding it for years, but there's only so much you can do, and then you look up and you're like, oh, this is a space that needs the kind of values that I bring. So I'm communications director there, and basically what I'm working on now is ensuring that people continue to trust a service that is almost 30 years old,
Mhm.
especially in a time where people are hurrying to get travel answers. They want quick fixes. They want to be able to answer things now. And
Mhm.
then it's a space that people are beginning to take advantage of other people's desperateness. So if you don't have the truth about going to countries, with this Japa syndrome and all that, or tales of coming to study and live in certain countries, you could get duped of millions of naira. I've been seeing situations like that daily. So, in this space, many travel agencies actually need people. Sometimes they hire a team, sometimes they do it externally, where people manage their communications and their image. So I'm practically doing that now
Oh,
with
wow.
Global Links and Services, but I've also brought my typical media skills into this space. So we have a podcast,
Mm.
right, which I started last year,
Mm.
and it's all about the travel industry, e.g., the world of travel, and it's also showing the travel space in a different light, and it's also encouraging
Mhm.
travel agencies to be a bit more transparent with their dealings, and it's helping people get the information they need. And when they hear it from a trusted brand like Global Links and Services, it also helps the conversation move forward. So that's what we're. That's the stage I'm in now, and I still do everything else I do in the podcast space. So every now and then, I might need to curate travel experiences for people who want to see all sides of the world, even locally too. So yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, I know that in as much as there's been a lot of improvement in the Nigerian tourism sector. It's still virgin. Trust me.
Yes, it is. In
It's
fact,
mm,
uh, the Worry Blue Summit is actually going on as we both speak. It started on Tuesday. I think it ends tomorrow.
yeah.
And she spoke. She spoke at it yesterday, and I'm shocked. I've always thought, oh, Worry has something to offer, but how do you sell Worry?
Everywhere in
And
Nigeria.
then
Nigeria is a
it's
Nigeria is a
amazing.
gold mine. I'm telling you. You'll be
It's
shocked. If you go to
amazing.
Taraba State, you'll be shocked at what they have. I'm telling you.
Yes, I heard we have elephants in the
Oh,
southwest, and
yeah.
I'm like, why have I not seen them?
White,
Why do I
white,
have to go to Namibia to see elephants?
white lions. I'm telling you.
Wow.
Tony,
So yeah, these are the conversations in the space now, and I'm beginning to see people who are specialists
Mhm.
in different areas of tourism
Mm.
who are now bolder about having these conversations. So beyond traditional media now, they now understand that there are other forms of media that they can use to sell the stories as well.
Wow, wow, wow. Time is never a friend. So it's just like I should just be listening to you. So I didn't interject you too much, but we have to go. That's Tony Doe, the man for the job. We want to brand. Now he's into tourism. That's a very good sign for the tourism industry in Nigeria. There's so many countries in the world. That's what they live off. You understand? So Tony, thank
Yes.
you for your time and talk to your sister. If she's ready to talk to us, we can take her next week. I
Oh, awesome, awesome. I'll let her know.
yeah, let her know. I don't mind. So to all our viewers, That's it. Every information you need about him, I'm going to put in the comment section. Reach out to him. Doesn't matter how small your project is. If you're podcasting, if you have a media outfit, learn to talk to the expert. People have paid their dues, you know. I have people I help to, you know. There's so much space for
Yes,
everybody. You
there
understand?
is.
So much
There
space
is.
for growth. One out of every four sub-Saharan African is a Nigerian. One out of every six black person in the entire world is a Nigerian. So, you know, there's room. See all the planes and the airlines in the world. They've not even filled maybe 10% of the space in the air when all those planes are here. But so there's space for everybody. All right,
Yes,
Tony.
there is.
Thank you. Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you, Eddie. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Bye.